So in today's video, I'm sharing when self-sacrifice becomes codependency and when it's actually a healthy relationship behavior. But if you're new, my name's Michelle Ferris. I'm a psychotherapist and I love helping people create relationships at work. So self-sacrifice basically means that you're giving even when you don't necessarily want to, even when it's pretty inconvenient. But let's face it, that's part of healthy relationships, is that sometimes you're going to find yourself in situations where you're going to need to sacrifice yourself. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's unhealthy or codependent, but you're going to learn the difference in this video. So self-sacrifice is actually a healthy response when there's a crisis or when there's something that's unintentional that requires help and support. This is not something that happens on a regular basis. A crisis means every once in a great while, and that's how you know the difference. Because self-sacrifice by nature is when we are making the choice to overextend ourselves, to do more than we're normally capable or willing to do. So for instance, maybe a friend or a relative gets into a car accident, or gets divorced, or loses their spouse, and they need support. Those are all situations that may require some self-sacrifice. But here's the key. Self-sacrifice is still a choice, and that's what I'm going to show you in this video with some very specific examples. Because it's okay to use self-sacrifice when the situation demands it, not the person. So for instance, last year, my 93-year-old mom fell, and both my sister and I immediately changed our schedules to help out and to be her advocate in rehab, because we didn't really feel like there was enough support at the facility she was in. So we decided to do daily shifts, and this went on for several weeks. Now, was this a self-sacrificing moment? Absolutely. Was I overextending myself? Absolutely. Was it codependent? No. Because this was a situation that warranted overextending or using self-sacrifice. We did not want our mother to be alone in that facility very long because she needed an advocate. But we were also at choice for how we helped. We could have done less, but that's where healthy self-sacrifice is really key, is you still get to decide what you're going to give in that crisis situation. It doesn't depend on what the other person is asking for. It's really dependent on what you can give at that moment. But let's face it, when a crisis happens, sometimes we are going to find ourselves overextending, and that's okay. But there still is an element of choice in that, and that's what I want to help you recognize. So for instance, after the initial crisis passed, it was probably about 5 or 6 weeks, we could let up a little bit in that scheduling. I was able to get a little bit of my time back, but there were still things like my daily walks that had to go out the window because I just didn't have enough time, and that was okay. So where was the line between self-sacrifice and codependency in this situation? So while my life did revolve around taking care of my mom for several weeks, I was able to do it without hurting myself. I definitely got less sleep, I definitely didn't exercise as much, but I did the best I could in that scenario. And once that crisis started to let up a bit, that's when I gave myself permission to do less and to get some of my time back. Even though it was a really long process, I was able to recognize when I could pull back and stop giving. And that's the key in self-sacrifice, is that it is a choice, but you're also aware of when that situation is no longer a crisis, you're able to take care of yourself. You're able to put your needs first, because ultimately when we live our life, that's the goal, is to really be able to attend to ourselves first and then our loved ones. But in some cases, like when my mom had her fall, I had to put her first, and that was okay. Now, I understand that that may not apply in your situation, and I'm going to talk about that too in a minute. So another example is maybe a friend who has recently gone through a divorce needs help moving, but you have a really important work project due Monday. Instead of throwing it to the wind and saying, I'll help you no matter what, you're willing to overextend or self-sacrifice a bit, but not to your own detriment. Maybe what you decide to do is you choose to help them move on Saturday while Sunday is spent doing your work, so you don't harm yourself in the process of giving. So when does self-sacrifice become codependency? It becomes codependency when it hurts you, and it hurts you repeatedly. Not in the case of my mom where, yeah, I wasn't getting a lot of sleep for a while. That was okay given the circumstances. But if I was running myself ragged to the point of being ill, that wouldn't have been okay. I still needed to be able to function during those several weeks. Well, say you have a narcissistic or abusive parent, and they expect you in the same situation to take care of them. Your situation might be different. You might say, oh my God, I can't take care of my parent. They are so toxic to me. But if it's codependency, you end up doing it anyway. You feel totally responsible and you don't think there's any other options, even though they might have neighbors or friends that could chip in. Feeling responsible for somebody else's life is often what drives self-sacrifice, because we think we need to put ourselves last in order to help someone, and that is the definition of codependency, putting yourself last for the sake of others. Because let's face it, we are rarely the only option for someone. There's always friends, neighbors, family, social services that can step in. And unless you see that as a valid choice, it's going to be really hard not to do that. So another example of when self-sacrifice becomes codependency is maybe you're in a relationship with an alcoholic or a narcissist or someone who creates a lot of drama, and they expect you to take care of them. They invent a lot of crisis. They need a rescue. They need money. They're always needing something. That is when you know this is probably not a real crisis. This is a crisis of the other person's making. There's a difference there. And that's when self-sacrifice becomes codependency, because we're giving too much in a situation that doesn't warrant it. For instance, the alcoholic person might need to hit bottom and take responsibility for their own life in order to get sober. Or the person who's very dramatic and addicted to chaos, they may need to feel that chaos without you stepping in and making it easier on them. Because those are situations that aren't true crisis, that don't necessarily require you to sacrifice yourself for others. Self-sacrifice also becomes codependency when it feels like a compulsion, like you absolutely have to give or help and you can't stop, even when you experience the consequences, even when your anxiety is increasing or you're getting physically ill because you're overwhelmed with all that you're doing. When you're continuously helping other people and it hurts you, that's when self-sacrifice bleeds into codependency, and I don't want that for you. So how do you self-sacrifice without it becoming codependency? It always comes back to choice. You are at choice for what you're deciding to give in any crisis situation. Now, with our mother, we felt like we wanted to go above and beyond, and both my sister and I were okay with that. But we could have also done less, and that would have been okay too. So knowing what you can give and what you can't give is going to be really important when it comes to self-sacrifice in crisis situations. You are always at choice for what you decide to give, because when we self-sacrifice, we are making a choice. And I would really recommend writing down what are some things you know you can give in a crisis, and what are some things that you know you absolutely can't give in a crisis. Because every situation is going to be different. And you knowing what you can give and what you can't in a crisis ahead of time is going to make it a lot easier when that crisis or difficult situation actually hits. And let's face it, with abusive or narcissistic people, you may decide to give a lot less or not at all, because self-sacrifice never means putting yourself in the line of fire and being abused. That is never okay. Self-sacrifice is your choice to overextend yourself given the circumstances, not the other person's demands. Now, the next thing I want you to do is go watch my video on codependency, because that is your next step. Thanks so much.